Weezy in the spot, bringing stats like a kingpin. MMA knowledge meets his nephews all lean in. Breaking down fights, codes that daddy supreme. On just a tip show, he's cooking up a dream. Uncle Weezy, he the man. Dropping fight facts, got it all on hand. He the stat attack grand. MMA guru, more than just a fan. Wanna know the numbers? Weezy got them cataloged. From the fighters reach down to how many times they dog. Just a tip living, breaking it down slick. Hit you with the knowledge, won't miss a single trick. Uncle Weezy, he the man. Dropping fight facts, got it all on hand. He the stat attack grand. MMA guru, more than just a fan. Those deep predictions, he be making those calls. Getting in the details, opponents feeling small. From jabs to takedowns, got the whole fight ID. Uncle Weezy spitting truth, no lie, keep it G. Blow the horn, blow the horn. Stat Daddy Weezy not showing no scorn. Fight night king, dummy wearing the crown. Break it down for the peeps, never looking like a clown.
Oh, yes. What's going on, everybody? It is Tuesday night, late night, midnight. Well, I guess it's almost like Wednesday on the East Coast, at least. It's 11 o'clock Chicago time, Tuesday night. It's time for Just a Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We're going to break down all 13 fights on the UFC Abu Dhabi card that is coming up this Saturday, headlined by Corey Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov, a fight to see who is going to be taking the next step in the bantamweight division. Umar is a massively talented prospect who has never lost as a professional and who has been absolutely dominant in every fight that he's ever stepped into the cage. So this is a big step up in competition for Umar, and he is facing one of the toughest tests in the entire bantamweight division in Corey Sandhagen. So we got a hell of a main event coming up this Saturday, and there's a lot of other good cards or good fights on this card from a gambling perspective, from a fan perspective. Last week I only had just I think 5 units in wagers or somewhere around there. This week I've already got 6.6 and counting, just waiting for props to open. I'll probably have at least twice as much action on this card as I did the last one because there are a lot more spots sticking out. So I wanted to go live tonight for the free content that I'm going to be doing on YouTube this week, this show. And then tomorrow on the Patreon, we will be going live sometime in the afternoon for Balls Deep breakdowns where I will give you a longer look at all 13 fights on this card. I will be going through all my notes. But today I'm just going to touch on who I like to win the fight, how, and if there are any bets that are sticking out on any of these fights so that we can get through this in less than an hour and also talk to the chat, see what you guys are up to, see what you guys are liking on this card. Let me share my screen with you guys here. And let's see here. Let's get that on there. And I think I'm sharing the wrong screen, so excuse me for just a sec here. Hang on. Let me see. Stop screen, and then we're gonna present and share. And it's going to be this one. That's why it didn't work. All right, so I got my screen shared with you guys here, and talk about last week real quick. I was terrible last week. I was great with bankroll management because I kept it to 5 units on a card where there were really no spots sticking out. But we missed on pretty much all of our bets. The only winning bet was the probability parlay. That was Aspinall Blades under 1.5 rounds, parlayed with the Patterson Crosby under 1.5 rounds. That came out to plus 165. It was a 1-unit bet. We won 1.65 units there. But we lost a 1/4 unit on Kiefer Crosby by first round KO. We lost a 1/3 of a unit on Patterson to win in round 2. We lost a 1/6 of a unit on Patterson to win in round 3. So we lost 0.75 units on that fight. quarter unit on Arnold Allen by submission, who didn't even attempt a takedown or to grapple at all. So that fight, that one was dead in the water. Prochnio by decision for a half unit. That guy is a complete moron. Every time he had Bukowskis hurt, he clinched up with him and wound up getting taken down. Leon Edwards by decision for 1 unit, not even close. The 1.5 unit parlay, the money lines of Leon Edwards and Molly McCann, not even close. But, it was a weird card. My reads were rough, but it wasn't a card that I was confident on, so I kept it to only 5 units of exposure. And hitting one of these bets made it so we only lost 2.35 units after winning 5.13 units the week before. So looking to bounce back and have a big card this week here, you guys. Let's see what you are all doing in the chat here. We got TH is the first in the room saying, oi, what's up, TH? We got Daz saying, oi. We got Mark saying, love me some Weezy after dark. And he said that his dispensary had full bud, not shake ounces at 24 grams for $20 today. That's a lot of weed for $20, Mark. You're going to be high as a kite for a very long time. And congratulations for that. We got Tom Gordon in the room saying, oi, what's up, Tom? J-Bone saying, oi. We got Jeff in the room. We got my guy Lou Betcha saying, oi, pay Lou. Yeah, Lou is owed some money from Fanatics Sportsbook, who screwed up a line, gave him Sam Patterson to win by submission in rounds 1 or 2 at plus 2,000. Lou made the bet. The bet was not canceled. The bet cashed, and now Fanatics is not paying out. So pay Lou Betcha. Let's pay Lou Betcha the bet that he placed, that his bookie accepted, and now needs to pay him out on. We got Eric Albrecht in the room saying, oi to everyone's cool uncle. What's up, Eric? Thanks for hanging out with us here. We got my guy Broke DGen in the room saying my favorite and best MMA breakdown in the world. Appreciate you, Broke DGen. Good to see you hanging out in here, my man. We got MMA Bill Counter in the room saying, oi, oi, oi. We got Lou Betcha saying awesome intro. I love it, dude. That's my guy, Matt, the Golden Octagon, who put that together for me. Uncle Weezy, he the man, says Chief Red Cloud. And ring a ding ding, says my guy Daz Files with the $10 donation saying, man, amazing new intro. Cool as fuck. Been too long. Let's go. Been too long since we've seen you, Daz Files. I hope all is well, brother. Good to see you hanging out in here, man. And thank you so much for the donation, saying he danced. Gonna learn the words so he can sing and dance the next time, man. Go, you can just skip back to the beginning and get all those words. They're laid out perfectly, man. I'm glad you like it. J-Bone saying, I love the early cards. Yeah, I like them too. Gives you some time on Saturday night to get a little bit of work, get a little bit ahead for the next week. And I always get that time to update my database as well. Sandhagen is the man for taking this fight. Yeah, Sandhagen's not scared of anybody. We got Brandon Olson saying, oi, Unc, what's up, Brandon? We got ring a ding ding from the guy who put together the intro for this show, the Golden Octagon, saying, oi, no better way to close out my night than with my favorite uncle. Good luck to everyone betting this weekend. We've got another good card. I know my guy Matt hit a 12-leg parlay last week and cashed huge on it. So go check out the Golden Octagon's YouTube channel. He does some great work over there with his guy D Rose. Some good prediction videos, some good card videos. So check out my man Matt over at the Golden Octagon's YouTube channel. J-Bone saying Fanatics had Hadley at plus 190 live in the second round too. Oh man, you gotta love that. Remdog in the room saying, oi! And then we got Dogfather in the room saying, Fanatics paid me for plus 1,300 Ogden decision. They should pay my boy, but then they limited him to $10. And that will happen on some of these books that are not the good ones that you want to go to. That's why we go to some of these bigger books that will not limit you most of the time. And we got Matt is saying to pay that, man. And we've got MMA Bill Counter saying, yeah, Fanatics Sportsbook, I had my issues when they were points bet. Yeah. Well, either way, you guys, we're going to get Lou Betcha paid, and we're going to get ourselves paid by breaking down all of these fights and figuring out the best spots that are sticking out on this card so we can all stack cash tickets like flapjacks together. We got Broke Degen saying, I buy 95% live resin diamonds concentrate for dabbing and 95% liquid diamond 510 cartridges in my powerful vape for vaping. Puffco Peak Pro for the live resin diamonds and all sorts of stuff. Okay, that's some pretty good stuff you got there. I'm just the good old-fashioned bud guy. You put it in a grinder, you grind it up, you put it in a pipe, and you smoke it. That's the way your Uncle Weezy rolls with it. And MMA Bill Counter saying something that I've been saying, we got to get Lou paid here. We got to get him paid, but we got to get ourselves paid too, you guys. So here are the stats for this week. You can check them out on the Patreon. $25 a month gets you access to the probability package that has the individual fighter stats for every fighter on the card. Offensive and defensive significant striking stats, offensive and defensive distance striking stats, offensive and defensive clinch and ground striking stats, offensive and defensive grappling stats, control time stats, DFS stats for prize picks, FanDuel, DraftKings, and Underdog. We also have the matchup stats where you could see the two fighters involved in the fight, their stats side by side, and also compared to the divisional benchmarks. You can see the over-under betting models for all the available over-under bets, like fight doesn't go to decision, under 2.5, fight doesn't start round 3, under 1.5, fight doesn't start round 2, including the overs and the unders, the implied probabilities of the lines, the benchmarks for the division, the fighters' comparison in comparison to the benchmarks, to the implied probability of the line. Great way to find plus EV bets that'll help you be a better long-term, more profitable gambler by having access to all this information, access to the fight write-ups, access to the Discord, access to your Uncle Weezy's track bets, $25 a month on the Patreon or on the Dub Club. Sign up now. Best way to support my work and best way to support yourself if you're a do-it-yourself gambler by giving yourself access to all the necessary information before you make your bets. Thank you for supporting the work. Thank you for being here watching live. 46 of you hanging out live here on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Please consider leaving me a comment down below. And if you want to support the work or if you want access to all these phenomenal stats that I curate and have access to, join that Patreon and get on board with the team that is growing by the day and is growing our bankrolls by the day as well. So let's start talking about the very first fight of the night. And it is going to be Special Delivery Dumas, SD Dumas, minus 225, going up against Denis Tiuliulin at plus 190. The fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, sitting at about 66, 67% at minus 200. So this is an interesting fight. These are two low-level guys, but you know the thing we got to look at here is that Sedriques Dumas' last three opponents were Nursultan Ruzaboyev, who knocked him out in the first round. Was it an eye poke? Was it a knockout? Probably an eye poke. And then two wins before that for Dumas over Abu Azatar, very close fight, and over Cody Brundage, who looked absolutely horrible in that spot. But Denis Tiuliulin in his last three fights, he's been out there against Christian Leroy Duncan, Gregory Rodriguez, and Jun Yong Park. So Denis is going to be taking a massive step down in competition here. Dumas, though, is going to be the bigger guy and the younger guy. He's 7 years younger. He's 1 inch taller. He's going to have the 2-inch reach advantage. He's a much better athlete than Denis is. But Denis is going to be the more experienced fighter overall with 9 more fights in almost an hour more of cage time. And he's also got the UFC strength of schedule advantage, where his 5 UFC opponents have a combined record of 19 wins and 13 losses, while for Dumas, the combined records of his opponents are 9 wins and 11 losses. So while this fight is on the feet at distance striking range, I actually think it's going to be very close. Excuse me. Denis is good at range. He pressures forward. He keeps a high guard. And he throws everything with bad intentions, and he definitely has knockout power. Now, Dumas, he needs space to do his best work. He has excellent kicks with both legs. He's tall, long, fast, and athletic, and he's got a nasty head kick that can end your night. But the problem with Tiuliulin is that his ground game is hot ass. It's absolutely terrible. when he gets taken down, he gets rinsed on the mat. And Dumas does have the ability to get takedowns and rack up top control. This is a huge step down, though, in competition for Tiuliulin after fighting Park, Rodriguez, and Christian Leroy Duncan. While for Dumas, you'd have to say that Denis Tiuliulin is kind of right on par with the level of competition that he's been facing and doing okay against. If Dumas actively wrestles and looks to mix in the grappling, I think that he can look that price tag of minus 210. But if this stays at range for extended periods of the fight, I do think Denis could look like value and have a path to victory in this fight. I do have to lean with the Dumas side in this fight because even if it does stay standing, I do think Sedriques could win this fight on points. But I do think dealing with Denis's pressure-heavy style will make it much more difficult for Dumas to win this fight than if he just decided to wrestle and not let Denis do what he does best, which is stay at range and strike. So I'm going to pick Sedriques Dumas to win this fight by decision. Let me make picks here on the Tapology screen. And I'm going to pick Sedriques to win it by decision because I think he has more ways to win. And I think that when Denis starts pressuring him and starts putting his hands on him, that Sedriques is not going to have much of a choice but to wrestle because it's the easiest path to victory for him here because Denis is so much worse on the mat defending wrestling and defending submissions than he is on the feet being able to strike at range. So while I think Dumas probably wins this fight, there's no way I would lay minus 210 on him. I don't think he's going to knock out Denis Tiuliulin. I think Tiuliulin's more likely to knock out Dumas than the other way around. But the Dumas by decision prop isn't that bad this week, and I think that that's a decent look for this fight. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got Benino is in the room, and he's saying, let's get this cheddar, Weezy, or let's get this bread, Weezy. Good to see you hanging out, Benino. Aussie Fight Fan is in the room saying, Weezy, what's up, dude? We got Iceland Farts saying, play it safe, play the over. Dumas decision is my pick. Surprised the over is set at 1.5 rounds. I thought it was at 2.5, actually. Oh, yeah, no, it was 1.5. 1.5 under 1.5 is plus 145. My betting model likes that a little bit more than the under, but it's a 9-fight sample size. Yeah, both these guys do have some power, but I don't think Dumas is going to sub Tiuliulin unless he gets him in a guillotine, a short arm, a short choke, or like a high elbow guillotine, like he got against Panache. But yeah, I mean, I could see this one going over, especially if Dumas wrestles. Brandon saying probably gonna have to take a flyer on Denis just because I have zero trust in Dumas's IQ. I feel the exact same way. Can we count on Dumbass to shoot? Give me the over 1.5 here. Yeah, I think we can. If he does shoot, I think we're a lot more likely to see an over because Dumas isn't going to finish anyone on the ground. But what he's proven in a couple of different fights, the Azatar fight, the Brundage fight, if you go back to his regional scene footage when he fought Aaron Highbaugh, this guy can get takedowns and rack up a ton of top control when he does get on top. J-Bone saying finish only, finish Tiuliulin. Finish only. Yeah, I don't mind a finish only for Denis Tiuliulin here. I think that he's probably more likely to finish this fight on the feet. There will be no greater feeling than a Tiuliulin win. Yeah, dude, I've bet on Tiuliulin against Jun Yong Park, which is a god awful bet. I mean, it was just awful, but it was because I thought that maybe Park's a little bit undersized and maybe Tiuliulin could stop the takedowns, and if he could, I felt like he could strike with Jun Yong Park. So if he could strike with Park, I think he can strike with Dumas. So yeah, I think it's interesting. Yeah, minus 175 for the over 1.5, says Iceland. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm going Dumas decision. That's the pick. But I think Denis Tiuliulin by knockout, or even by like a first or a second round knockout at a nice plus money number might be worth playing this week. But let's move on to the next fight, which is going to be Jay Herbert going up against Rolando Bedoya. Herbert's a small favorite here at minus 145. The comeback on Bedoya plus 125. Fight doesn't go to decision. They expect this one to see the scorecards more times than they don't. Herbert, a loss last time out against Fares Ziam, a draw against Ludovic Klein. But Jay Herbert had a point deducted in that fight So I think it's very important to note that just 2 fights ago, he fought Ludovic Klein, who's on an absolute hot streak right now. And if he hadn't have kicked him in the nuts twice in the 3rd round, he would have won that fight on the scorecards. And then a win over Kyle Nelson, who's been looking fairly good lately as well, as a minus 265 favorite. Bedoya off of 2 straight losses in the UFC here. He was a big underdog at plus 300 to Chaos Williams. Overperformed in that fight, lost a very close decision. And as a result of that, he came out next time out against Song Kanan as a massive favorite because he overperformed as an underdog in the last fight. And then he didn't cover that minus 325 scorecard or price tag. And he wound up losing that fight by unanimous decision to Kanan Song. So Herbert's going to be the bigger dude here, 2 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage. He's got the UFC experience advantage with 5 more fights at this level and 45 more minutes of octagon time. He's the better finisher, and he's got the UFC strength to schedule advantage, while Bedoya is going to be 8.5 years younger than Jay, and he's got the overall experience advantage. So while this fight is on the feet, I see Herbert as being the more precise and powerful striker. Jay needs space to work, and Rolando will probably try to pressure Jay and crowd him so he can't get his kicking attack off as easily. I see a big power differential in favor of Jay Herbert here, but I also see a sizable durability and chin advantage on the Bedoya side, which makes this a pretty interesting fight to break down. Does Jay land a big fight-changing kick or straight right before Bedoya marches him down and outworks him? I do believe that the constant pressure and volume from Bedoya makes Jai clinch up and try to slow this fight down a little bit. Jai definitely looks tentative after some of the knockout losses he's suffered, and he's been a lot more likely to kind of clinch up and avoid exchanging these days as compared to his earlier fights. This is going to be Rolando's first fight at 155 pounds since 2017, and I think he's much better suited at 155 where he won't be undersized like he was at 170. I think Jay Herbert's best path here is by decision because the pressure and value of Rolando is going to irritate him, make him clinch up and probably look for takedowns, clinch and top control time, and ground and pound. While it's at distance, I think Jai wins the moments while Rolando probably wins the minutes. A finish only for Bedoya at the right price could catch my eye as well as a plus money Jay Herbert by decision prop. Hard to predict who wins this fight, being that this is Bedoya's first fight in the UFC at 155, and the clash of styles at distance between the technical, precise style of Jay Herbert against the pressure, pace, and volume-heavy style of Bedoya. I'm going to go with Jai Herbert by decision as my pick for this fight. And I think that Herbert has a ton of power, but this guy Bedoya's got he's got a really, really good chin. So I don't think Jai is going to be able to knock him out. I don't think Jai is going to submit him. So I do see that Jai's best path here is to win a decision. And as long as Bedoya, who hasn't flashed a ton of power at this level yet, doesn't knock out Jai, I think he gets the nod here on the scorecards. Let's see what you guys are saying here. We got Presidente Pedro is up in the room saying, "Oi, what's up? Good to see you hanging out in here, Pedro." Bedoya decision is the pick for Iceland Farts. We got Mark saying Jay Herbert for him by decision. Broke saying, "I take Jesse on Fire wife's Benieve, great company with energy powder. They have good watermelon, but I have the coffee one. Mix it with Nespresso Quad, and I'm chewing chocolate espresso beans. Not bad." Jesse on Fire's wife's Benieve is the name of the company, their energy powder. We got Golden Octagon saying, hoping the kid looks great at 155 as the dog, worth my money. Well, he's going to fight for your money. That's something that Bedoya is always going to do. And he's not going to be, he's going to be undersized because Jai Herbert is a huge lightweight. They do this to you a lot of the time. If you want to move down, they'll give you the biggest guy in the division that you move down to. Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I never listen to fighters in interviews. Whatever they say they're going to do, they usually do the opposite. But he said in an interview that he plans to get back to his old ways and not fight conservative. Well, that'll be interesting. We'll see if he actually fights like that or if he just says he will. All right, you guys, next fight is going to be Viktoriia Dudakova versus Sam Hughes. Dudakova, a slight favorite at minus 164. Hughes, the plus 144 underdog here. Fight doesn't go to decision at plus 300. Basically, the bookies see this thing, seeing the scorecards about 80% of the time. So, Dudakova got a win over Jinyu Fry in her UFC debut, or not in her debut. Her debut was against Estela Nunez. She won that fight due to injury. And then she won a 29-28 unanimous decision against Jinyu Fry, but she was a minus 535 favorite in that fight, and it was very close. So she didn't cover her price tag. While Sam Hughes' last three opponents have been Yasmin Jauregui, Jacqueline Amorim, and Piera Rodriguez. So Dudakova taking a big step up in terms of level of competition here. She's 6.5 years younger than Sam Hughes is Dudakova, and she's got a 3-inch reach advantage here, while Hughes has got the pro and the UFC experience advantages, and she's got the strength of schedule advantage, having 6 more fights at the UFC level. Combined record of Sam Hughes' opponents, 28 wins, 23 losses. Combined record of Viktoriia Dudakova's 2 UFC opponents, 2 wins and 10 losses. So make no mistake about it. This is a big step up in competition for a relatively untested fighter here in Viktoriia Dudakova. So I think these ladies are fairly well matched. I rate Viktoriia as the better moment winner, who should land the heavier, more eye-catching shots on offense. And I think she's the fighter more likely to win minutes and moments with her grappling game if she can get on top. 6.5 years younger, a natural lifelong athlete with a background in competitive swimming is Dudakova. She proved on Dana White's Contender Series that she can fight through adversity and find ways to win even when she's tired and injured. That being said, Dudakova can get sloppy going for takedowns and wind up putting herself on bottom and losing minutes. So I'm not overly confident that Dudakova is the more efficient grappler, as Hughes doesn't have great takedown defense, but her get-up game is very good, and her grappling game has been tested by higher-level fighters than Dudakova. While this fight is at distance striking range, I favor Dudakova's moment winning, but I think Hughes can frustrate Viktoriia with her pressure and her output. I think if she can outwork her in the clinch and get back up when Viktoriia does get takedowns, that she can put on the heavier pace over the last 2 rounds and make this a very close fight. I don't know who wins here. I think Viktoriia can land the heavier shots and mix in the takedowns, very much like Piera did against Hughes, but there isn't any evidence to suggest that Viktoriia is at Piera's level yet. So I would rate Hughes at plus 140-ish on the money line as the value side. And since Dudakova is solid, has heart and durability, I think Hughes by decision with maybe a very small poke at Sam Hughes to win in round 3 are the ways that I would play this fight. But I'm going to go with Sam Hughes to win this fight by decision here in an upset. I think Dudakova has more upside. I think she's flashier. I think she's the better moment winner, and she's got a well-rounded game. She can definitely get takedowns and win some minutes on the ground, but Sam's just been tested at a much higher level. I think we know a lot more about her, and I think she's getting a lot better still where she's at right now in her career. So I'm going to go with the upset here and pick Sam Hughes to win by decision. All right. Brandon saying both the WMMA fights feel like trap spots to me, staying away. I don't have any action on this one yet, that's for sure. Dudakova going to lose via staph infection. She keeps getting those infections in her nether regions. Yeah, not good. Hoping Sam Page exposes the staph hole. Yeah. Dudakova decision for me, says Iceland Farts. I'm glad she didn't, but why didn't Sam Hughes get suspended for saying in post-fight interview how her boyfriend bet on her as a big dog 2 fights ago, I believe? Yeah, because her boyfriend's allowed to fucking gamble. She's not. He is. He doesn't work for the UFC. They can't tell him what to do. And even if he has inside information, they can't prove that he has it. And he didn't. She just won a fight. So, yeah, she cannot get suspended for that. It's not illegal for her boyfriend to gamble. Fair point, Farts, says Brandon, and can personally confirm she no longer has staff down there, says Target. Our guy Tarzan definitely knows what's going on, and he can personally confirm that Viktoriia Dudakova's nether regions are crystal clear and ready to go. I thought no one in immediate family or friends is allowed to gamble. The immediate family and friends of fighters are not employees of the UFC, so the UFC can absolutely not tell them what to do, period. There's no precedent to suggest that somebody that does not work for a company can be told what to do by them. So yeah, no chance. Anyway, next fight. Guram Kutateladze at minus 205 going up against Jordan, the epidemic Vucenic at plus 175. The under 2.5 rounds is at plus 155 for this fight. So, let me get these stats up on the screen. And sorry, you guys, it's always hard to see above my laptop. Okay. Jordan Vucenic is going to be making his UFC debut here. Jordan Vucenic just fought a week ago. He fought last Saturday. So this fight, he's taking on less than 2 weeks' notice. This is a 2-week turnaround, 2 weight cuts in a 2-week period for Vucenic. A long flight to Abu Dhabi, and his UFC debut is going up against Guram Kutateladze, whose 3 UFC fights at this level have been against Mateusz Gamrot, Damir Ismagulov, and Elves Brener. Jordan Vucenic is on a 4-fight winning streak, all 4 of those wins coming by way of submission over Tiziano Ferrante, Bryce Picard, Simone Diana, and Adrian Kepa. But he was a minus 2,200 favorite over Kepa, a minus 600 favorite over Diana, and a minus 1,400 favorite over Bryce Picard. Guram Kutateladze could probably beat all 3 of those guys in the same night. You might even be able to put 2 of them in the cage at the same time with Guram, and he probably still beats those guys. So Jordan Vucenic, former Cage Warriors champion, really good grappling game. When he can take you down, he can absolutely get to dominant positions, threaten with submissions, and land ground and pound. But Guram is just a lot more well-rounded. He's been around a lot longer. He's 2 inches taller. He's got the UFC experience advantage. The strength of schedule is advantage as well. So, while his fight is at distance striking range, I anticipate Guram doing the better work, landing the heavier, more eye-catching shots. Guram does his best work when he backs his opponents up, lands big elbows in the clinch, and he loads up on his kicks to all areas on the body. Jordan Vucenic has decent calf kicks, but I think he's outclassed on the feet here. Guram is 7-1 to the KO as a pro, while Jordan is 2-0 to the KO. Vucenic does his best work when he gets takedowns, and then he uses his combination of ground and pound and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to get to dominant positions. He's 6-0 to the submission as a pro, while Guram is only 1-1 to the submission as a pro. So clearly Jordan needs takedowns, top control, ground and pound, and submission attempts in order to get this fight to where he has the advantage. But that's going to be extremely difficult. Guram can be taken down, but he's extremely difficult to hold down. He's been taken down 7 times in 3 UFC fights, but he's only allowed 16% control time to his opponents, despite his opponents averaging 10.1 takedown attempts per 15 minutes against Guram. So Guram is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in his own right, so I'm not even sure that Jordan is the better grappler in this matchup due to the fact that he's been rinsing complete bums in Cage Warriors. And we saw Paul Hughes out-grapple Vucenic in the rematch that they had and also land the bigger shots on the feet. So when he took that step up and fought Paul Big News Hughes, we did see that Jordan Vucenic, can be put in bad spots and dominated not only on the feet, but on the mat as well. And he didn't have a lot of answers when Paul did get to dominant positions against him on the mat. So add to all this that, he just fought on August 20th, did Vucenic. He's taking this fight on 8 days' notice, making a 14-day turnaround, enduring 2 weight cuts in a 14-day period. So the odds are really stacked against Jordan in his UFC debut. He's outmatched on the feet. Guram has fought the much better brand of competition as a pro. There's a massive power advantage in favor of Guram Kutateladze here, and the short notice and turnaround and flight to Abu Dhabi to make your UFC debut are really rough circumstances to have that fight under. So I think Guram stops the takedowns, elbows the hell out of Jordan in the clinch, and eventually finds a KO in the late first or early second round here. This is too much too soon for Vucenic, and I don't like this matchup for him at all stylistically. I'm going to pick Guram Kutateladze to win this fight by second round knockouts. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, how would you even enforce friend? I have no idea. And then once again, you would have to prove that there was a conversation, amongst two people that are willing to be on the same page with each other and be like, no, I never told that person to bet on me. So, I mean, like, even if the FBI or the authorities got involved somehow, you would have to literally be as dumb as a doorknob in order to give the investigating parties the necessary information that they would need to even build a case against you. So, yeah, and appreciate the deep dive, says Real Fight Picks. Happy to note the staff is clear. And Tarzan Strickland said, I'm sure it was his pleasure to do that inspection. Real Fight Picks saying, I'd pick Jordan if he was a true lightweight, but he's not. He is a featherweight and fighting up at lightweight now. But I think Guram will be too thick for him. Same thing my girl tells me sometimes in regards to being too thick. Yeah, we've all been there, brother. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. Iceland Fart saying Vucenic sub 2 is the pick for me. Might just play the under. Yeah, the under I think is a good look too here. Even the under 2.5 I think is a good look. I'd say Jordan is more well-rounded, including cardio, but I see Guram finishing him. We got my guy, the General Alex Ramirez, in the room. Let's see. Broke Degen saying, of course, only the athletes themselves cannot bet. Anyone who's not the actual athletes or the employees, this is, you just can't, you cannot tell somebody. The UFC has no right to tell anybody that doesn't have a contract with them what they can and can't do, especially when gambling is legal. And we got K-Dog saying, I'm late, but I got to get an in. What's up, K-Dog? And Alex Ramirez saying, press the like button. I appreciate you. But if he's going to bet on her to win, what makes people think he won't bet on her to lose? Well, I mean, he could bet on her to lose as well, and he might profit from that as well. It doesn't, like I say, it's not illegal for him to do that. If they were to collude, that's completely different because it's not the bet. It's fixing a fight that's supposed to be a fair fight and making it, you're running a racket. You're involved with the RICO statutes when you start to affect the outcome of a contest that's supposed to be fair. But the bet does not make the contest unfair, so it can't be illegal. Especially a bet to win, not like they threw anything. Yes, that's true. Yeah, so he can absolutely do that as far as I know, but your Uncle Weezy ain't a lawyer, so you never know. Don't take law advice from your Uncle Weezy, please. And this is not financial advice either, but let's move on to the next fight, you guys. It's going to be a fun one here between Shamil Gaziev at -210 going up against Dante O'Mays at +180. Fight doesn't go to decision here, sitting at -200 for this fight. So Gaziev coming off a main event loss against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, where he was knocked out, really kind of just jabbed into oblivion over 4 rounds. Had a good first round, got a takedown, but kind of gassed out after 1 round and was just outworked on the feet by a much better striker. But his UFC debut was phenomenal. He beat 7 shades of shit out of Martin Buday and finished him in the second round there, just absolutely steamrolled him. And then he got a win over Greg Velasco on Dana White's Contender Series. He was a -500 favorite in that fight and won easily. Dante O'Mays coming off a unanimous decision win over Kyle Machado. Before that, unanimous decision loss against Rodrigo Nascimento in a close fight. And then a second round KO win over Andrei Arlovsky. So Gaziev's got the finishing ability advantage here. He's got the wrestling advantage. Don'Tale Mayes has got all the measurables advantages, being 2 years younger, 2 inches taller, having a 3-inch reach advantage. And not only is he 2 years younger and bigger than Shamil, but he's also got the pro experience advantage, 5 more fights, 150 more minutes of pro cage time. And he's got the UFC experience advantage as well, with 7 more fights and 90 more minutes of octagon time. So it's an interesting heavyweight matchup. I think Gaziev is a little better everywhere this fight goes. On the feet, I favor the power and the pressure of Gaziev. He's definitely got power in both hands. He backs his opponents up to the cage and he unloads with bombs. In addition, you got the threat of the takedowns to worry about as well with Gaziev, as is his ability to wear on you in the clinch and land big shots. This fight is in Abu Dhabi, and Gaziev trains in Bahrain, so the crowd will be 100% behind him here. Mayes has fought the better competition overall as a pro. He's the bigger, taller, and the longer guy, and I do favor Don'Tale's conditioning in this matchup over Shamil's as well. But I see Gaziev putting that pressure on in round 1, landing big shots, potentially getting Don'Tale out of there in front of his home crowd. He will slow down as the fight goes on, but I still think he can win minutes at range and in the clinch in the second round and hold on in the third if it gets that far. The wrestling upside, as well as the minute and moment winning ability in the clinch and on the mat, also favors Gaziev. So I'm going to pick Shamil to get the second round finish here, and much like he did against Martin Buday. I like the under 1.5 rounds and Shamil's money line as well, but the pick is going to be Shamil Gaziev to win by second round KO. A couple of my favorite pictures here. I love the Shamil picture with the elbow, the clean head, the great beard. He looks very handsome. And then they caught Don'Tale just sleeping. I mean, the guy sleeps a lot, okay? I mean, you can just tell right there that the eyes aren't even open. You know, just be quiet around Don'Tale. Don't wake him up. You know, it's like 3 minutes to fight time. Let him nap, you know, and then he fights like he's taking a nap a lot of the time. There's just not a lot of activity, not a lot of urgency. And I kind of see Shamil going out there in Abu Dhabi with all the sheiks cheering for him. And I think he's going to go out there and just try to get Don'Tale out of there. And I think he might be successful doing it. See what you guys are saying in the chat. Let's see. If he had inside information, it draws a gray line. Yeah, well, that's for sure. If he had inside information, then there might be an investigation. And in which case, if there's an investigation, you know, you lawyer up and you don't answer any of their questions. And then you get into the room with your lawyer and your girlfriend and you say, okay, how can we come up with a story together that keeps both of us out of jail and doesn't get our lawyer disbarred? And if you're smart enough to never talk to the cops or never answer questions from the FBI or a cop ever in your life, you're not going to wind up behind bars because they need you to give them the information they need to hang yourself. So, yeah, I mean, like, if you get caught like James Krause doing what he did, if you get caught doing it, it is so much more of a commentary about how stupid you are as a human being, not knowing, you know, what it is that you need to do to protect your own ass, you know, when to keep your mouth shut, you know, is a great lesson in life, you know. Goodfellas, the great movie Goodfellas, you know, Jimmy Conway is talking to young Henry Hill. Henry had gotten busted, you know, but he kept his mouth shut. He didn't say anything. He went into the courtroom. The judge kind of looked at the lawyer. The lawyer looked at the judge, gave him a wink, and then they sent him home. And then Jimmy Conway, he comes up to him afterwards, and Henry Hill is like, man, I'm sorry I got pinched, you know, and Jimmy says, no, you don't be sorry. You did it the right way. You learned about the 2 greatest things in life. The 2 greatest things in life. You never rat on your friends, and you always keep your mouth shut. Maybe some of you didn't see that movie, but that's words to live by, you know? You got a cop there, cops asking you questions. Hey, I don't rat on my friends, and I always keep my mouth shut. That's all you need to know. So yeah, that's what we got to do. All of us, when the odds are against us, we don't rat on our friends and we keep our mouths shut. I think the rule only extends to the fighters' coaches. Basically, if you're walking out with them, and that makes sense. And don't forget, like if you're training with a coach, like the commissions might have, the necessary authority to actually suspend coaches. So that could be something that could make a lot more sense. Gaziev sub 1 says Iceland farts. We got Dave Crack saying definitely not allowed by the sports book. We got Seth's 2424 says the blob is obviously a lock. This should go over. Wink, wink. I don't understand the 2.5. Yeah, I bet the this is a 2.5. This is a 1. Or yeah, that is. I'm sorry, I bet this under 2.5. I got minus 130 on it. I love that price, or minus 135. And you sell us in the room laughing with the waving and the clapping. Love it. All right, you guys, let's move on to this next fight. It is Muhammad Yahya versus Kaue Fernandes. Let me get my stats up here. Yahya lost his UFC debut and was out wrestled by somebody with no wrestling background in Trevor Peak. Before that, Muhammad Yahya was the UAE Warriors lightweight champion, fighting some extremely low-level competition. This guy's not any good. If you're getting out wrestled by Trevor Peak, that is a massive, massive red flag. In Kaue Fernandes, you've got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt with a very opportunistic submission game, who's got a very, very dangerous distance striking game as well here. So outside of the fact that Muhammad Yahya is from the UAE, he's from, I don't know if it's Abu Dhabi or if it's Dubai, whatever. He's from that region. He's from that country. So he is going to be the hometown fighter here. They are going to be going for him. And if this fight goes to decision and it's close, he's probably going to get the nod. But from what I've seen from Kaue Fernandes thus far as a professional here, he's less experienced. He's younger. These guys are about the same size, but this guy's actually explosive. He's actually a finisher. He's a guy who's been in LFA fighting a decent level of competition, and he had a really good performance in a loss against a really tough opponent in Mark Diakese. That's a tough UFC debut. Mark Diakese would probably be minus 500 against Muhammad Yahya if they were to fight. So the fact that Kaue is minus 400 here against the hometown fighter kind of makes sense, just based entirely on just watch tape on both of these guys. You're going to see one guy that's a little bit better than a bunch of bums on the regional scene, and then you're going to see a guy in Fernandes who's fighting like some 8-1 Brazilian guys and then punting their heads into the cheap seats. So I'm just going to keep this real simple. I'm going Kaue Fernandes by first round knockout here. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Yeah, decision, good dig bet. We'll play the over. Yeah, good decision, good. Okay, you like the Yahya decision. We'll see how it goes, man. I mean, this is a fight I'm not going to touch. These are the kind of fights that I stay away from. An unproven fighter at minus 400, basically that big of a favorite, not because the things we've seen on tape from him make him a minus 400. It's what we've seen on tape from his opponent that looks like he's got no chance to win, which makes him a plus 300. So yeah, not going to overthink this one. It's a pretty low-level fight with a really low-level local guy in Muhammad Yahya that they're probably trying to get a win, but there's not a lot of guys, I don't think, that are signed with this organization that would lose to Muhammad Yahya. So yeah, let's move on to this next fight, which is going to be Alonzo Menifield at plus 170 going up against the professional Azamat Murzakanov at minus 200. Fight doesn't go to decision here, also at minus 200 for this fight. I like this fight. This is going to be a fun one here. With Menifield, he's coming off like a 12-second loss to Carlos Ulberg. He got sloppy. He overcommitted on a right he kind of like blitzed forward, landed a big shot. He got sloppy, overcommitted on a punch, and he got clipped. Before that, he won as a plus 220 underdog against Dustin Jacoby, a fight where he was kind of getting outworked on the feet at distance striking range, but he landed big shots in the second and third rounds to kind of steal moments and steal the rounds there and win a decision despite the fact that he was getting outstruck at distance by Jacoby there. And it just goes to show you that you can lose a bunch of minutes, but when you have the kind of power that Murzakanov, that Menifield has, you can lose the minutes, win the moments, and still win decisions. You don't have to be the most active fighter. You just got to land the bigger shots a lot of the time and not absorb a ton of damage or give up a bunch of minutes in the grappling exchanges. And then he got a win before that, did Menifield over Jimmy Crute by second round submission. Murzakanov is undefeated as a pro at 13-0, and he's on a 3-fight winning streak. A unanimous decision win over Dustin Jacoby as an underdog. A third-round knockout win over Devin Clark as a minus 150 favorite, and a third-round knockout over Tafan Nchukwi as a minus 195 favorite. So Menifield's taller. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. He's got the pro and the UFC experience advantages. Azamat Murzakanov on paper is 1.5 years younger. If this guy was 50, I wouldn't be surprised, but he just looks old. But he's very explosive. He's a southpaw, and he's listed as the younger guy here. So both of these guys are extremely explosive strikers with a ton of power. On the feet, I see Azamat being the one who's going to be pressuring. He has so much power in his left hand, and the way he bounces up and down on his toes in that bladed stance, coiled up and ready to explode, it clearly slows down the output of his opponents at range. Azamat's UFC knockdown ratio is 3-0, while Alonzo's UFC knockdown ratio is 5-3. And Azamat's knockdown percentage is slightly better than Alonzo's at 1.7% compared to 1.2% for Alonzo. Both these guys are good in the clinch, but Zoe is bigger and stronger, and he can wear on Azamat there. But historically, Alonzo has gotten outworked in the clinch, and he's been outstruck 118-65 in significant clinch strikes at the UFC level. I like Zoe's conditioning better than Azamat's, and if he makes Azamat and grapple and clinch up, he can wear on him and make it more likely that he slows down later on in the fight. If Mark Goddard doesn't take a point from Alonzo due to the fence grab in the first Crute fight that wound up in a draw, and say that you thought Alonzo Menifield won the William Knight fight, which I thought that he did, you would see that Alonzo, if those things had happened, if he didn't get the point taken for the fence grab, if he got the decision win over William Knight like he deserved to be, he would be right now having won 8 of his last 9 fights, if that was the case. So obviously, this Alonzo Menifield is going to be a very tough opponent with a well-rounded skill set. On the other side, Azamat's undefeated as a pro. He's on a 15-month layoff, and he pulled out of 2 fights in the last year due to injuries and pneumonia. So it's going to be interesting to see how he looks after such a long layoff. What we do know about Azamat is that he is a high-level sambo background. He's deceptively fast, and he has a ton of power in his own right. The threat of the wrestling and ground game is something you have to worry about, and undefeated fighters usually get the nod in close decisions. I think these guys are well matched. I favor Azamat's striking early and Alonzo's conditioning and ability to win minutes and moments in the third round should it go that far. Both these guys have a ton of power, but I think I favor the speed, the accuracy, and explosive southpaw striking style of Azamat here to land the bigger shots, steal the moments of this fight. We've seen Alonzo get knocked out twice in the UFC by Carlos Ulberg and Ovin St. Preux, but since Azamat has never lost, we've never seen him knocked out. I think Azamat finds a moment early in the fight and gets the knockout, but I also know how powerful and explosive Menifield is. So I think the under 1.5 rounds at plus money is a good play for this fight. I don't see a whole lot of clinching here, and if these guys stand at range and bang, I think somebody's going to get served. So I got Azamat Murzakanov to win this fight by second round knockout. The professional by KO in round 2. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. We got D Spearman in the room saying, Weezy, what's up, D? Good to see him hanging out here. We got Iceland Farts agrees with me. He's also on Murzakanov KO2. Brandon said that he thinks he made a decent bit on Azamat versus Jacoby, but he's got to take Menifield here. Anakin Skywalker is in the room waving, and he's saying Umar and Shara Bullet are locks this week. Azamat KO. Menifield is coming back quick. Yeah, dude, and it's in Abu Dhabi as well, where Azamat's going to be like the hometown fighter, being the Muslim fighter, the Dagestani guys. So, yeah, it's going to be a very, very good fight. Both of these guys have got ridiculous power, so I'm really looking forward to this one. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We've got Joel Alvarez going up against Elves Brener. Alvarez, a lot of money came in on him today. He was minus 150 yesterday. He's pushing minus 190 now. Brener, the plus 163 underdog here. Fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, sitting at minus 200. So Alvarez coming off a second round submission win over Mark Diakese. That was, he headbutted Diakese, and the referee didn't see it. So that was a fight that was actually very close up until that point. He lost to Sarukian. He beat Thiago Moises and absolutely just destroyed him, while Elves Brenner's looked really good at the UFC level. He lost to Mektabek Oralbai last time out, but before that got a first-round knockout win over Kanan Krashevsky, and he got a third-round knockout win over Guram Kutateladze in what was an amazing fight. You got Alvarez is going to have the measurables advantages here, being 5 inches taller and having a 5-inch reach advantage. He's the more experienced fighter with 3 more fights as a pro and 3 more fights at the UFC level. And he's got the strength schedule advantage over Brener, saying that Alvarez got 3 more fights at the UFC level, but he's fought the more experienced brand of UFC competition compared to Brener. But Brenner's 4.5 years younger. He's got a cage time advantage as a pro. But this is going to be a bit of a ding-dong, this one. Both of these guys are all-action fighters who have a tendency to be in bloody wars, and both have an eye for the finish. While this fight is on the feet at distance striking range, I favor Joel Alvarez. Both guys have power, but I love the variety of attacks that Alvarez has. He mixes his kicks and his punches really well, and he does his best work when he's staying busy and pressuring forward. Brener has got a really tricky and powerful overhand right left hook combo that he throws, and if it lands, it's nighty-night. Keep your butthole tight. Brener will be the more likely guy to offensively wrestle here, but it's not always advisable due to how aggressive and dangerous Alvarez is when he has you in his guard. Brener is extremely durable. He's never been finished as a professional, but he's also extremely hittable, and he's been on death's doorstep a few different times in the UFC against Guram Kutateladze and against Maltabek Oralbai. I think Joel is going to do the better work and land the cleaner shots at range. And if he has Brener hurt, I think he gets a takedown and tries to finish with a sub. If Alvarez sells out for the finish and it doesn't come, I could see Brener finding a late finish. This kid's heart is as big as a truck, and he has no quit in him. He can go into zombie mode, stay in fights, and keep coming forward looking to land bombs late in the fight. I love this fight to finish inside the distance. Both guys have such great finishing instincts, but I do favor Alvarez's height, length, and technical striking ability at range. And I also think he's the more dangerous submission grappler who has the UFC experience and the strength to schedule advantages. This fight is going to be awesome, but I think Alvarez finds a club and sub finish here in the second round. So we're going to pick Joel Alvarez, El Fenomeno, to win this fight by submission in round number 2 against the guy in Elves Brener who has never been finished as a professional. This is going to be an awesome fight. I cannot wait to watch this one. What do you guys think of it here? We got Paku MMA in the room saying, good day, Unc. I hope you're well. Good to see you in here, Paku. We got Benino saying Bud Crawford going to whoop some ass on Saturday. I have no idea who that is. We got Iceland Fart saying Alvarez sub 2 is what he's going with. Anakin likes the Alvarez sub. Anakin saying Brener is also coming back too quick, taking some damage from Oralby. Yeah, Oralby had him in big trouble in a couple of different spots in that fight. Brener gets hit entirely too much. I don't like that. These guys that have been hitting him in Oralby and Guram don't have the kind of finishing submission game that Alvarez has. So I believe if Alvarez does land something big and he gets Brener on skates, that's when you could see Alvarez, like just like when he headbutted Diakese and got him hurt. He got the crackdown. He had that wrist above the head, and then he just fed the arm through to the Darce choke there, and it was all over, man. This guy has got such an opportunistic submission game that if he does hurt you on the feet, it's probably going to be over. Brandon Olson saying, I think I have to dive into this one a bit more, but I'd feel better deciding on an over-under. Yeah, I mean, I do like the fight doesn't go to decision here as a potential parlay piece this week when it becomes available to parlay. Brener is always live. I love his heart. His heart is amazing, dude. This guy will not stop coming forward, and he will never quit on himself. It doesn't matter if he's covered in blood. It doesn't matter if he doesn't know what day it is or who he's fighting. He's going to go keep looking to get that dude out of there. Iceland and Weezy in sync this week. Yes, sir. Alvarez says Ramirez here. Anakin saying Brener wins over Guram and Kenan has not aged well. Yeah. Guram was a great win, but he was losing that fight. Make no mistake about it. It was Guram was starting to slow down there because he took the fight on short notice kind of too. And yeah, Brener just wouldn't go away, but a lot of guys wouldn't have gotten finished by what Guram was landing on Brener in the first and the second. We got Gogo Flamingo in the room saying, what's up, Weez Dog? Good to see you hanging out in here, Gogo. And you sell us in the room saying, I feel like Brenner's chin is eventually going to crack. Maybe not this fight, though. Yeah, he's getting hit way too much. 52 of you live hanging out here. We get into the main card. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe. Leave me a comment down below, and please consider joining the Patreon so you can get access to these phenomenal stats that can help you make better long-term gambling decisions and cash more tickets. You guys, let's move on to the next fight, which is going to be Mackenzie Dern going up against Loopy Godinez. We got Dern, a -126 favorite. We got Loopy, the +106 underdog, and the fight doesn't go to decision here at +160 for this fight. I like Dern here in this spot quite a bit, actually. Let me read the write-up that I have for you guys here. This is a high-level strawweight fight, and the grappling game of Mackenzie Dern is elite. She's a two-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion at the black belt level. She's winning 2/3 of the control time positions her fights are in, and even when she's on her back, she's constantly got her opponents playing defense. At distance striking range, I do think Loopy is the better boxer, but the threat of the grappling along with the pressure Dern brings on the feet makes up for the distance striking deficiency that she has in this matchup. Loopy doesn't have power. She's not dangerous, and in order to keep Dern off of her long enough in order to win minutes at range, she's going to have to get her respect. Loopy is the better striker, in my opinion, but we have to remember that even though Dern has been dropped 6 times in 13 UFC fights, 5 of those knockdowns came against Jessica Andrade and Amanda Lemos, the 2 hardest hitters in the entire division. Dern is 2 inches taller. She's got a 2-inch reach advantage. She has the UFC experience and strength of schedule advantages, and BetOnline currently has Mackenzie Dern's finish-only prop at -400. So that means the sharps or the books have 80% of the finishing equity on the Mackenzie Dern side here. This line is way off. Loopy will have to fight a perfect fight in order to win here. Dern is the better moment winner wherever this fight goes. Every time this fight goes to the ground, Loopy will be playing defense and defending submissions and sweep attempts. Dern's durability has been tested against the hardest hitters in the division, and she has wins over Virna Jandiroba and Angela Hill, 2 ladies who cleanly beat Loopy Godinez. Maybe Loopy keeps this at distance, stops the takedowns and the clinch attempts of Dern, and wins the minutes, banks the rounds, and wins a decision. But I think Dern is the bigger hitter on the feet. She's been scheduled for 5 rounds at the UFC level 3 different times, and she's proven her heart, durability, and cardio. And there's no question whatsoever that Dern is the far more dangerous grappler in this matchup. Minus 126 on the money line is silly. I bet that for 2.6 units to win a little bit more than 2. And I'm probably going to be touching up some props as well. But the pick for this fight is going to be Mackenzie Dern by decision. So here we go. We got Mackenzie Dern, and I got her winning by decision here over Loopy Godinez. Let's see. We got Iceland Farts and I are not synced up on this one, and he is saying Loopy Godinez decision. And he's saying, I just hate flipping a coin to decision where Dern is at mentally, just staying off of it. I don't think there's any issues about Dern mentally. I mean, if you watch that last fight against Amanda Lemos, this woman is a fighter. She has no quit in her. She can grapple when she's hurt. She can come back from an absolute horrific beating against the toughest, the hardest hitter in the entire division, and almost get finished in the second round, and then come out and win the third round and win it convincingly. So I love where Dern's at mentally. She's back training with Perillo, so that's going to be a good thing for the pressure and the striking that she brings here. I really like Dern in this spot. I think she should probably be around minus 200 against Loopy. I think that even if this goes the decision and Loopy does bank 2 of the 3 rounds, that Dern probably gets the decision. She's the more marketable girl here. And I think that she's got the better skill set. And I don't think that, I don't know how you could be minus 400 on a finish only prop and only be minus 128 on the money line, especially when Loopy Godinez, the girls that she's barely beating Emily Ducote. She's barely beating Tabitha Ricci. Even one of the judges had it 30-27 for Ricci in that fight. And Ricci's not nearly as good of a striker or dangerous of a striker as Mackenzie Dern is. So, yeah, I like this spot here. I don't think Loopy's going to win this fight. I think Dern's going to make it look fairly easy. And anytime that there's any grappling in any rounds, I think there's a 90% chance that Dern's going to win that round. So, love that. I love that spot here. Godinez by sub prop. You're going to be behind on a lot of other things if you bet on Loopy Godinez to win by sub against the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt world champion 2 times, son or daughter of one of the greatest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu players. You might as well just take your money and light it on fire. But have fun. Godinez by sub is your Uncle Weezy's worst bet of the week, maybe the worst bet of the year. Loopy says Alex Ramirez. And Metalingus is in the room saying Dern by KO, TKO, or sub. Oi, says Metalingus. All right, you guys, let's move on to this next fight. It is going to be El Kukui, Tony Ferguson at plus 475 going up against Michael, the Maverick Chiesa, minus 650 favorite. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Sitting up at minus 130 for this fight. So with Ferguson, you got a guy who's 40 years old. He's on at least 7-fight losing streak, but it might be an 8-fight losing streak. Who cares? It's a shit ton of losses in a row. He's not good anymore. But Michael Chiesa has been finished in 6 of his 7 UFC losses. When things stop going his way, he looks for the door here. So I actually bet the under 2.5 rounds at plus 130 for this fight. It has moved to plus 100. I think somebody gets finished here. I think Ferguson is live to finish via choke, and I think Chiesa is absolutely live to get a takedown, get to Tony Ferguson's back, and finish him as well. Love the under here. Would never in a million years lay minus 650 on Michael Chiesa's money line. I'm not parlaying him at that price, and I'm not betting on Tony Ferguson, who is as shot as a Chinese motorcycle right now. this is not the kind of fight that I want to get behind with my money, but I do have that under 2.5 rounds bet here because I have no faith in the durability of Michael Chiesa, but I do think that Chiesa can do what he's always done in the UFC, which is get takedowns, get to his opponent's back, and then just try to find that rear naked choke finish that he's so good at. And with Tony Ferguson, I kind of feel like if he gets taken down in the first and ridden out, and then he gets taken down again in the second, he's going to realize that he's got to fight those chokes for another 10 minutes. And he's going to be like, okay, I can either just tap out now and still receive the same loss check that I would if I kept this guy on my back for another 10 minutes, getting beaten up, waiting for him to choke me out. So yeah, I think Chiesa by second round submission is how I'm going to pick this one to go. But I am not backing either of these guys' money lines with my hard-earned money, and I'm just hoping that somebody gets served inside of 12.5 minutes here. All right. And we got Ucelis in. I want to sprinkle Ferguson out of all of his last 10 fights. Can we say Chiesa is the worst? Yeah, we can, because Chiesa is not really a professional fighter right now either. He's more of a commentator. He's definitely kind of got one foot out the door. And he's on a losing streak in his own right. Chiesa, let's see where he's at here. So Chiesa, 3-fight losing streak. His last win came in 2021 against Neil Magny. And he's been finished in 2 of those 3 losses as well. But he's fighting Luque, Sean Brady, and Kevin Holland. So he's definitely taken a step down to Tony Ferguson. And then Tony Ferguson is on a 7-fight losing streak right now. But yeah, Gaethje, Oliveira, Dariush, Chandler, Nate Diaz, King Green, and Paddy Pimblett. So yeah, I mean, like, Chiesa is one of the worst opponents that he's seen, in this losing streak. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but I'm just going to stay away from this fight other than the 1 unit bet I have on the under 2.5 here. At least we can be thankful there's only one instead of these 2 terrible fights with Diaz being out. I agree 100%. They're taking the legends that still have contracts and they're putting them on some of these cards to where, some of the fans might really want to go see those guys, So this fight's going to happen, though. They're going to pay Tony Ferguson to show up for a fight. He's going to be there. Cash in that check. Might not be a win check, but he will cash a check. So, yeah, all right, but let's move on to the next fight here. It is going to be Marlon Vera at plus 121 going up against Davison Figueiredo at minus 141. The fight doesn't go to decision here, sitting at plus 200. So you got a moment winner against a moment winner here. But Marlon Vera is the more experienced fighter at the UFC level and and as a professional. He's much bigger than Davison Figueiredo, being 3 inches taller, having a 2-inch reach advantage. He's 5 years younger than Davison Figueiredo, so younger fighter with more experience, all the measurables advantages. Both of these guys have power, and Davison Figueiredo's got a little bit of wrestling upside here that I think he could potentially utilize. But I think that this line is pretty much right where it should be. It's hard to back Marlon Vera these days because the guy just doesn't do anything. He's so dependent on moment winning that you can't really bet on this guy to win decisions because he's going to throw away the first round doing nothing. And then he's going to be patient, even though he knows he's losing, because when he is patient is when those openings present themselves, and he's a master of finding those openings. The problem is that Davison Figueiredo is not a guy that people are finding a lot of openings on. I mean, this guy has only been knocked down once in 16 UFC fights. These guys have got a combined 23 knockdowns for. Marlon Vera's got 12 UFC knockdowns. Davison Figueiredo's got 11 UFC knockdowns, and these guys have been knocked down a grand total of 1 time. So 23 knockdowns to 1. Both of these guys are fantastic moment winners on the feet, but Davison Figueiredo doesn't do shit. He only attempts 6.6 distance strikes per minute. Well, Marlon Vera is a very low volume guy, but he actually attempts 10.6. So he does just a little bit more. And because he's the much bigger guy, because he's the natural bantamweight, because he's the younger guy and more experienced guy, I can see why people are getting behind him to win this fight. Because Davison Figueiredo is not exactly the guy that's going to go out there and outvolume you. Davison Figueiredo is just a little bit more efficient of a minute winner at the flyweight level than Marlon Vera was at the bantamweight level. So I don't know who's going to win this fight. It's going to come down to who lands the bigger shots and who has more minutes in this spot. But here's what I do know. I do know that Marlon Vera's 5 years younger and more experienced and has fought the better brand of competition. I know that he's got just as much power on the feet as Davison Figueiredo, and I don't feel like I can count on Figueiredo to win minutes against Marlon Vera in the grappling exchanges. So I think that this fight is basically a coin flip. So the value is probably on Marlon Vera here. But I think Davison Figueiredo is a guy that's maybe more likely to find those moments on the feet or just land the more eye-catching strikes. Yeah, I'm going to be staying away from this fight. I think it probably goes over, but the bookies are onto that. Not going to lay juice on Figueiredo, knowing that he's got as many on-paper disadvantages against Vera as you can have, really. But I'm also not going to put hard-earned money on Marlon Vera and watch him do nothing for 3 rounds and you lose yet another decision because he doesn't do shit. This isn't Rob Font who gets knocked down and gets hurt in every fight. Davison Figueiredo's, a little bit harder to find. I don't know, man. I guess I'll go with Figueiredo by decision here, but I don't like this fight. I won't be betting on this fight. I'm interested to see who wins the moments in this fight, but I don't want to put my money behind it. Let's see here. We got Brandon in the room saying, I think it would have been so much smarter for the UFC to put Diaz versus Tony together stateside, sell tickets and let the vets both retire. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually. Diaz and Tony going at it because they're both equally washed at this point. We got Cheeto Martin Budai Vera. Budai does a lot more than Vera does. We got Val Duar in the room saying, regarding Sam Page's boyfriend betting, the UFC isn't telling them what to do. It's the law, man. He cannot bet on her. Also, UFC fighters themselves aren't even employees. They're contractors. So who's saying he can't bet on her? Who's saying that? How could you tell somebody who's legally allowed to bet that they can't bet on somebody? Who has a contract with Sam Hughes' boyfriend that prevents him from gambling on a perfectly legitimate sport to gamble on? This doesn't make any sense. He can absolutely bet on her, and he did bet on her. And who's going to tell them that he can't? The FBI? The gaming commission that this guy doesn't work for? I don't get this. I don't understand that at all. I think Cheeto is as good of a dart throw as you can get with value. Give me the over or the chart or the Cheeto money line. Yeah, I kind of feel that way. I have no idea who's going to win this fight. So, it's one of those things that I feel no compulsion at all to put my money on that fight. What guy has been on since the start of the show? We got bro bet $100 on Sam. Who cares? Larry CTM saying over 2.5 is the safe play. Yeah, it probably is, but it's juice to the tits, man. The over 2.5 rounds in this fight is sitting at minus 295. My God, for a men's bantamweight fight, for guys like Figueiredo and Vera who finish as much as they do, how could they do that? I mean, I don't understand it. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Val. But Val's been a watcher of the show for a long time. I mean, I remember Val was one of the first people that ever commented when I started going live. way back in the day when I used to do not just the tip with Uncle Weezy, but the balls deep breakdowns that lasted for an entire hour of just one fight. So shout out to my guy Valduar. He's been with this channel for a very long time, and I understand what he means. But that there probably is some kind of language from the UFC, or that like, oh, you can't bet in certain situations, but while it might be a law that's on the books, I mean, good luck proving it happened. Good luck proving that they had inside information, and good luck getting a conviction, because, these kind of things are going to be very difficult to prove in a court of law. Whether the statute even exists and how it could possibly apply to somebody that that doesn't work for the organizations involved, the gaming commissions that is in a state that's legal to gamble in. You would have to prove that they had inside information, and that is very, very difficult to prove, especially when you're trying to prove it against somebody that actually has an IQ and understands that they don't have to answer questions from these people. Yeah, definitely respect to the OG Valduar. And I think it's just as easy as a fan to only know what we think the UFC says. Then Sam just blatantly said he did in a post-fight interview just feels dirty. Yeah, I know. I remember even when she said that, I was like, oh, Sam, don't say that. Don't say that. But I still don't think at the end of the day that he did anything wrong. I mean, you guys remember, like, Justin James bet on himself to beat what was it, Charles Rosa. That fight went to split decision. He wound up losing it, but he had like $20,000 on himself. And I know that they changed some laws after that, but how that could possibly, how the state could write laws for people that may or may not be involved with somebody and has no like not even a wife or a family member, but a boyfriend. I just don't see how they could possibly be enforceable. Anyway, let's move back to the stats here, and let's see here. We're going to go down to the co-main event of the evening. It's going to be Shara Bullet Magomedov. He is a minus 225 favorite here over Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk is a plus 190 underdog, and the fight doesn't go to decision here for this one at minus 215 here. So I'll just take you right to the summary of the fight. This is a fun one, man. Let me get down to the notes here. Absolute banger of a co-main event. So much better than Nick Diaz versus Luque would have been. It's striker versus striker, power versus power. Neither of these guys offensively grapple much, so we should get to see both guys do what they're most comfortable and dangerous doing, and that's standing in the middle of the cage and striking. So Shara is a couple of inches taller than Mihail, but that's where the on-paper advantages end for Shara, because Oleksiejczuk's 1 year younger than Shara. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage. He's the southpaw. He has 2 working eyes instead of just one. He's the far more experienced fighter overall and at the UFC level, and he's fought the much better brand of competition at the UFC level. There's a lot to like on the Oleksiejczuk side. I always like backing the pressure fighter, the younger guy with a lot more experience. But Mihail's on a bit of a skid here. He's lost 3 of his last 4 fights. In the last 2 fights, he was training in his garage with friends, and he didn't appear to be taking mixed martial arts seriously. It looked more like he was showing up for a quick check, and here he is in another short notice fight where he looks to be getting thrown in there to get Shara a win in front of the Abu Dhabi crowd. That being said, Shara is a high-level kickboxer who throws most of his offense with his legs. And Mihail is an uncompromising pressure fighter who marches his opponents down, backs them up to the cage, and he unloads with power hooks to the head and to the body. He's very durable. He has a ton of power. He's landed 7 knockdowns in 14 UFC fights, and he's finished 6 of his 7 UFC wins by way of KO, all of those wins coming by way of first-round knockout. Mihail is a big underdog here, but I think that's an opportunity to find a big plus money line to play that encompasses his best win condition, and that's an early KO. We saw Mihail drop Kevin Holland in his last fight in the first round and then go into his guard and get subbed. But Shara Shara Bullet doesn't even know how to spell BJJ. So if he does that to Shara, he might actually finish Shara with ground and pound, because Oleksiejczuk does have excellent ground and pound when he gets on top. I do have to back Shara here, though. He's on a full camp in Abu Dhabi where he will clearly be the fan favorite. His striking is extremely high level, and he has a ton of power and precision in all of his attacks at range. And Mihail is probably first or early second round knockout or bust here due to the narrative issues about his commitment to the sport and the short notice nature of this fight for him, combined with the weight cut and the travel to Abu Dhabi. Shara is the rightful favorite, and I think the line just gets wider from here on out due to the speculation that Mihail is not committed to the sport anymore. But if we forget about the narrative issues and just look at this fight on the stylistic components and the available tape that we have, I think there's a ton of value on the early round props on the Oleksiejczuk side, and I will be playing them small this week. I also like the under 1.5 rounds at plus money because neither guy is likely to offensively grapple, so that increases the probability of an early knockout on both sides due to how much power both of these guys have and the urgency and pressure that Oleksiejczuk always fights with. So I'm going to pick Shara Bullet to win this fight by second round knockout, but what I'll probably be betting is Oleksiejczuk to win by first round knockout at better than plus 1,000, and a small bet on Oleksiejczuk to win KO 2, just in case he does get an early second round knockout, because I think that's pretty much his only win condition here. I mean, maybe he could win a decision, I suppose. And because Magomedov's a god-awful grappler, I mean, I guess submission could be in the mix for either one of them, because Shara's got no ground game and Oleksiejczuk's been subbed in 5 of his 7 pro losses. So, man, this is a weird one, but I'm going with Magomedov KO2. But like I say, I think the value and the big plus money numbers on Oleksiejczuk KO1 and KO2, we'd be silly to pass those up, because you could throw a quarter unit down and maybe win like 3 units just on the first round KO prop. So it probably is worth a sprinkle. Let's see. Alex saying Hughes' boyfriend betting would only be questionable if she had lost. Yeah. And I mean, like, but still, you know, if there's, it really does depend on what the language of the law says. Didn't Mihail get his arm broken? I don't think he got his arm broken, but he definitely was in an arm bar, but I think he tapped before it was broken. Brian saying, what's up, Weezy? Good to see you hanging out in here, saying, oh, what's up, dude? And Alex is in here taking notes. That brings us to the main event of the evening, you guys. Corey Sandhagen plus 250 underdog. Umar Nurmagomedov, the minus 300 favorite. And we got fight doesn't go to decision here for this 5-rounder at minus 105. So, I can't wait for this fight. Umar finally gets an opponent that's worthy of sharing the octagon with him. Umar Nurmagomedov has absorbed a grand total of 26 significant strikes over 5 UFC fights. He's winning 97% of the control time positions his fights are in, and he's got a positive 3.5 distance striking differential and completely outclassed the top-notch striker like Hani Barcelos at distance striking range. Umar is the truth, and he's fighting a guy in Corey Sandhagen who could keep it close with anyone in the division. Corey has all the on-paper advantages other than the fact that Umar is the younger fighter. Corey is going to be 3 inches taller. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage. He's got the overall and UFC experience advantages, and the level of competition that these guys have faced is not even close. Corey is a very talented striker as well. He's boasting a positive 2.1 distance striking differential against the best fighters in the bantamweight division. And Corey's been showing off his wrestling chops in recent fights against Vera and Font, so he's also a very well-rounded fighter. Umar Nurmagomedov is an elite fighter with elite defense. He's well-rounded enough to know where to take the fight to have an advantage. His wrestling is elite, coming from the Abdul Nurmagomedov school, being a cousin of Habib, and his distance striking acumen is way beyond his years. He's shown no weaknesses at all. He's disciplined. He's defensively responsible. He has dominant wrestling, top control, ground and pound, and an opportunistic submission game. His conditioning is excellent, and he's from a family that is basically mixed martial arts royalty. I will stop believing that Umar is a championship material fighter when I see actually somebody win a fight against him with my own eyes, and not a second sooner than that. I think Umar might be at least as good as Corey on the feet, if not better. I have no doubt that Umar will be the guy winning the minutes in the grappling exchanges. And even if this fight is close, the undefeated Phenom should get the rub from the judges in Abu Dhabi, seeing as he's a Muslim as well as being an undefeated fighter. Corey is a great test for him, but I feel as if this fight is going to be close on the feet and that Umar can do to Corey on the mat what Corey did to Font the last time around. Umar is too hard to hit, too hard to win minutes against, too hard to be offensive against due to the wrestling and unusual kicking attack coming back your way. I think Umar dominates the grappling exchanges and might even find a submission or a ground and pound finish here. Umar, by any way he wants it, is the prediction. And my official prediction is going to be Umar Nurmagomedov to win by submission in round number 3. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got Brandon saying, huge respect to Corey for signing this one. I think the safest play for me is just deciding over under just in case a fluke happens. Yeah, this is great because, I mean, like now we get to see what Umar really is all about. He's not fighting Nate Maness. He's not fighting Brian Kelleher or Sergey Morozov. He's not fighting a 38-year-old Hani Barcelos or however old he is now. He's getting somebody with a pulse, and not just somebody with a pulse, but a guy in Corey Sandhagen whose last 10 opponents are Rob Font, Marlon Vera, Song Yadong, former champion Peter Yan, former champion TJ Dillashaw, former champion Frankie Edgar, Marlon Moraes, former champion Aljamain Sterling, Rafael Asuncao, John Lideker. And then even before that, his third fight in the UFC was against Mario Batista, and he subbed him in the first round. I mean, Corey Sandhagen is awesome at MMA. He's got great striking. He's constantly switching stances. He can mix in the wrestling. He's got phenomenal conditioning, great heart, and great durability. But when I talk about dominant fighters, it's never the ones who wind up being the most dominant are not the most offensively gifted fighters. It's the ones who never take damage. That's how you be dominant. And you do that by absorbing 0.6 significant strikes per minute. You do that by landing 4.7 distance strikes for every minute spent at distance while only absorbing 1.2. The divisional average is 4.7. Umar Nurmagomedov absorbs about 25% of what the division does on a whole. This guy is impossible to score points against. That's how you be dominant. You don't be dominant by going out there like Yosemite Sam blasting, unloading the fucking clip, just indiscriminately throwing offense everywhere. You do it by frustrating your opponents and not allowing them to ever hit you, ever hurt you, ever score points off of you. That is what Umar Nurmagomedov does. That is how you be dominant in this sport. And I think he's one of the most dominant fighters that the UFC is going to see for a very long time. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he performs against a guy like Corey Sandhagen, who is as tough a test as you get in this division. We got David Dennett in the room saying a little late, but glad I caught the tail end. Fun early card and rooting for Figgy and Oleg Sachek. Best of luck, y'all. Best of luck to you, David. Thanks for hanging out, man. Nick Alexander saying, do you really think Hunter Campbell gave Sandhagen a choice? I'm guessing the only choice was sign or we cut you after Dana walked out on his last performance. No, I don't think you have to force Corey Sandhagen to sign on the dotted line to take a fight like this. That's not how Corey Sandhagen is. There's a lot of guys who are very, very concerned about who they fight and when. and they're very strategic about that. Corey says yes to everything. Corey is not afraid to take tough fights. Corey is a guy that I think is a true fighter. So I don't think he had to do that to Corey Sandhagen. I think there's a lot of guys who won't fight Umar, but then eventually there comes a time where it's like you almost just have to say, well, if nobody wants to fight him, then the champion's going to fight him. Because if the guy is that good and nobody's willing to fight him, then the only way to get somebody to want to fight Umar is to put a belt around his waist and give you, now you got a reason to fight him. Now, if you beat him, you're the champion. But there's no reason to fight Umar if it doesn't get you anything. But Corey is that guy. Corey's not afraid of him. I'm sure of it. I bet Corey's going to be willing to shoot takedowns on him. Corey's got supreme confidence in himself. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how Umar responds to fighting a guy like Corey Sandhagen. I highly doubt it impacted it. Corey's just a dog. Yeah. Corey's the type of fighter that UFC loves. He's a warrior, War Sandhagen. There's no question about it, man. I'm really looking forward to this fight. But yeah, the pick is going to be Umar Nurmagomedov by third round submission. So let me take you through real quick here. This was supposed to last about an hour. I went an hour and 35 minutes, but it went that long because we got to talk with the chat. You know, I like to do that with you guys. I like to make sure that you guys' voices are heard. And we talk about these fights. But the Bootsy Collins Memorial, Dogs Are Barking pick of the week. We got to get you an underdog pick that we think is going to cash at plus money. Bottom line is, you guys, I don't like a lot of underdogs this week. But I did find one spot, and that's the Sam Hughes money line at plus 144. Look, she's way more experienced. She's got the better conditioning here, I think. But she's fought the much better brand of competition. She's just been in there against much better level of competition. And the pressure, the volume, the experience, I think are all going to wear on Viktoriia Dudakova here. And I think we're going to see some holes finally start to show in her game, as she hasn't had a lot of high-level opponents yet. And the fact that Jinyu Fry easily won a round off her and had a very close third round against her leads me to believe that Sam Hughes is going to be able to do a little bit more than what Jinyu Fry did and get the nod in this fight. So I like her money line at plus 144, which brings us to the last order of business of the week. It's Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. We've hit 12 of the last 13 of these. We're on a roll, ladies and gentlemen. Last week, we gave you Tom Aspinall the win in rounds 1 or 2 at minus 167. We cashed the shit out of that one. And we're looking to make it 2 in a row and 13 out of the last 14 if we hit this one. So I need somebody that's going to win violently. And there were 3 names that I was looking at this week. I was looking at Umar Nurmagomedov, but in my opinion, he's got literally the toughest opponent on the card in Corey Sandhagen. So I didn't want to be overly confident about Umar's chances in what's, coming to be a huge step up the ladder for him in Corey Sandhagen. Another guy I was looking at was Shamil Gaziev over Don'Tale Mayes, but God, Gaziev is extremely hittable in his own right. He really doesn't have more than 6 or 7 minutes of conditioning, and if he doesn't get Don'Tale Mayes out of there or decides to go to the wrestling early and that gasses him out, then I think the second and the third rounds, if Gaziev doesn't get a finish in the first, could be close enough that, maybe Don'Tale does steal it on his scorecards. So what I did go for this week for Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week was a guy who's just been fighting at a higher level, who's been performing at a higher level, the guy that I believe is the much better striker in this matchup, the guy that I believe is the better wrestler. I mean, if you look at somebody like Mateusz Gamrot, look at a guy, he shot 16 takedowns against Guram. He got 5 of them. What did he achieve on the mat against Guram Kutateladze besides absolutely nothing? And the answer to that is nothing. He did not get anything done on the ground against Guram. Now this kid who's on an 8-day layoff as of right now, who's been fighting guys in Cage Warriors that he's a minus 2,200 favorite against, he's going to take a fight on 8 days' notice in Abu Dhabi up a weight class against an incredible fighter in Guram Kutateladze, who was training for a very high-level fight here. Let me look. Who was he training for? Guram was training for Abdul Karim Al-Salwati. So, yeah, I mean, he was fighting. He had a good opponent in Al-Salwati, who's a Jordanian, if I think Jordanian, so a local guy. And now he's fighting an Englishman, who's up a weight class on a 14-day turnaround. So I think Guram's better than this guy everywhere. I think he's going to find a knockout on the feet here and shave the ass of the debuting fighter who's making this debut under extremely difficult circumstances in Jordan Vucenic. That is your Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. 46 of you guys still hanging out live here with your Uncle Weezy. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. Hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment down below. And please consider joining the Patreon to support the work, to get access to the matchup stats, to the over-under betting model, to the prop betting model, to the individual fighter stats, to all the fighter write-ups that you see right here for every fight, including trends, previous fights, advantages, summary, picks, and best bets. $25 a month for all that. Great way to support the work. Great way to make sure I keep showing up here for free for you guys on YouTube. Thank you for the Daz Files. And who was it else who donated to the show today? It was Daz Files and my guy, the Golden Octagon. Thank you for the donations. Thank you guys for your attention. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Abu Dhabi. God bless each and every one of you guys. And I will be back not once, not twice, but thrice tomorrow. If you are on the Patreon, I'm going to give you the full card breakdown. Balls deep breakdowns with your Uncle Weezy. We'll go the full breakdowns for all these fights. We're also going to do Probability, the members only content, where we break down the plus EV bets on this card using my betting models and the stylistic reads that DFS by the Numbers and I have on these fights. And also on DFS by the Numbers YouTube channel, the DFS show with myself, Brady, Gordo, and Monk. That is coming up at 8 o'clock Central Time tomorrow night. So I will be very busy tomorrow breaking down these fights, mostly for the Patreon community, but also for free on Brady's YouTube channel. So check that out as well. You guys have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow. And let's have a big week for UFC Abu Dhabi. Take it easy, everybody.